Extra Bases, Bristol and Booth, Jason Bristol. Jeremy Booth will be joining us momentarily. He's here, everybody. It's been a while, Jeremy. It's been a while. Hey, I was over at the Astros as they introduced their new slugger, Jose Abreu. A few things that I think, there's a few things. I have a few takeaways from what I've heard and people I've talked to about the Astros moving forward. Can I bring those out right now, or do you want me to mention them later?
I think now's a good time.
Okay. Number one, the Astros, with the signing of Jose Abreu, they believe that they are going to be bludgeoning their opponents. They think that their lineup is that good. And then coupled with the pitching, yeah, even without Justin Verlander, the lineup is going to be legit. Number two, I think Astros fans should prepare themselves for no more Justin Verlander. When you consider what Jim Crane mentioned in an article that Justin Verlander wants Max Scherzer money, and then today Jim Crane mentioned that he hasn't talked to Justin Verlander lately. And from a discussion that I had with some other people in a discussion I had after the news conference, I think the Astros, I think that they're preparing for life without Justin Verlander. And number three, the next general manager of this team, whenever that person is hired, and you've been mentioning this for a long time, analytics are great, but this is going to be a baseball guy who understands feel and understands the game and has this idea of that players aren't machines and numbers. And we heard some of that today after the news conference with Jeff Bagwell. But those are my three takeaways from everything I gathered on Tuesday involving the signing of Jose Abreu.
Well, for all those big takeaways, I'm going to start with the one the Astros probably wanted. I'm going to go bad news to good news. Okay. Bad news is I'm going to agree with you that Justin Verlander's a Dodger. And it's interesting because, him and his wife, they just sold their Beverly Hills mansion, which would, with where Chavez Ravine is, Beverly Hills, anyway, it doesn't mean they can't go back out there with the gazillions of dollars they get and buy something in Pasadena, which is, pretty comfortable. But, I would say he's going to land somewhere in the $35 million range with the Dodgers. Okay. It'll be a short-term 1-year AAV. It'll be another option after that. But I think that's where he's going to go. Now, here's where, for the Astros fans saying, what about us? Here's where you got some kind of a problem for the Dodgers. The Dodgers are trying to get under the cap. Okay? If the Dodgers are trying to get under the cap and they've got $35 million tied up in Verlander, they got to cut some money somewhere. They got to get somebody to take Chris Taylor probably. The guys that they bring back in, like a Shelby Miller deal today, which they did, would make more sense, $1.5 million. They got to find some pieces. This is not going to be the Dodgers that everybody's used to seeing spending $700 million a year. It's not going to. They're trying to get under the cap, and a lot of that has to do with the fact that, frankly, they haven't won the World Series. They won in 2020 in the shortened season, but they've had plenty of opportunities to get to the postseason. And as loaded as they are, they haven't done it. So the big money they're putting out, at some point, ownership goes, wait a minute, when are we going to start winning? Okay. So there's that. So if Verlander goes out there, I would say his chances of winning a World Series decrease from Houston, but it's certainly going to be, he made $25 million here last year. It's going to be 35 next year out there. So there's that. Good news is, Jose Abreu's here. He's a formidable force in the lineup. He's going to hit somewhere between Alvarez and Bregman. And Tucker. It'll be somewhere in those four guys will figure out where they flow. If it's me and it starts today, if I truly believe in Jeremy Pena, even with that swing and miss, I'm hitting him sixth. And I'm starting out with I want Bregman hitting more than Jeremy Pena. I'll ask this question. Do you want Alex Bregman hitting more than Jeremy Pena?
Yes.
Do you want Yordan Alvarez hitting more than Jeremy Pena?
Yes.
Do you want Jose Altuve hitting more than Jeremy Pena?
Yes.
Do you want Kyle Tucker hitting more than Jeremy Pena?
Yes.
Do you want Jose Abreu hitting more than Jeremy Pena?
Yes.
Okay, if all that's true, then those guys need to hit higher in the lineup. And it's not like Bregman's not a perfect fit in the 2-hole. Bregman was hitting 4 because how the rest of the lineup was constructed. Doesn't mean Alex can't do it. It just means that's where it was constructed. If you've now added a prototypical run producer in Jose Abreu, which is what you've done, right? Who himself, I believe, said today to the media that he's more of a hitter, right, than he is a power guy. We all know he's got plenty of pop, right? He's got all kinds of things he can do, but he's a run producer. If he's a run producer and you want him, he should be paid $20 million a year to hit. If you really believe in Jeremy Pena's 255, 260, somewhere in there, 260 with 20, if you really believe in that, that's fine in the 6-hole. It's fine. Now, you can still put Pena 2 to get the most out of him, to get a bunch of fastballs, but the league knows who he is now. They're going to adjust back, which means if that's the case, then Bregman's the one that slides to 6, and I'm not comfortable with that at all. I don't want that at all. I want Alex Bregman hitting the first 3 hitters. That's just me. So looking at that list of things, looking at that roster, the first 6 guys, Pena included, are pretty good. And Abreu makes everybody better around him. But the issue is at some point the protection's got to end up for somebody. Okay. And if Abreu is going to hit 6, who protects Abreu? Right? That's a question they're going to have to answer. Now, if it's Michael Brantley, Gurriel, whatever type of mix, that's fine. That's not enough for me. No offense to any of those guys to protect Abreu. Okay. So where that person's going to hit isn't as simple as, oh, these guys hit this way, he's going to slide in the 6th spot. That's not how that works. They have to figure out what they want to do with Pena, and any kind of analysis to me has Abreu, who's a former MVP, by the way, hitting 3, 4, and 5. Okay. Somewhere in that range. And he's not going to hit 3rd. So to me, he's a 4 or 5 guy. Diving into the general manager deal. And this is something that's going to frustrate lots of Astros people out there. I'm wondering if some of these there was a guy, what was his name? This guy that was up in the Woodlands. He was all fired up about it. You're a bitter scout.
Disgruntled ex-scout.
Whatever that guy's name was. Like, I haven't forgotten because I laughed. I mean, I forgot the name, but I probably laughed for 3 or 4 years about this thing. It was pretty funny. The analytics are fine in the big leagues, but fellas, it's more than the big leagues. And you don't go out and spend this amount of money. Now, it only matters if you win in the big leagues from a fan perspective and that's great. But when it comes to get to the big leagues, let's not forget this all started not with Jeff Luhnow, who everybody's quick to anoint now the click isn't here. This started with Ed Wade and Bobby Heck. That's where it started. Luhnow and company did a great job with the big league roster, with trades and acquisitions and augments and free agent signings. An excellent job. That's what the analytics do a good job at. That's what they're for. Okay. So to dismiss analytics now, which this current group isn't doing, is a mistake. Okay. To put them where they belong is a good idea. And that is with a seat at the table and a voice in the room and the numbers having the ability to help you make better decisions. That's a good idea. Now, when you're looking at player development and scouting, and it's important to clarify, and I promise you, I'm working back to the GM here. It's important to clarify that pro scouting is scouting, but it's not international scouting and it's not amateur scouting. And unless you've done those things, any one of them, you don't understand it. It's just the way it is. It's like standing in the box and like Biggio and Bagwell have done, or Jose Cruz. Unless you've done that in that scenario, like, you don't have an idea what that means. You have to respect what somebody else has gone through to get there. Playing minor league baseball is not the same as playing in front of 45,000 fans. Doesn't mean you have any idea less how to teach it or to convey it, or you're less of a baseball person, but you got to respect the experience. You got to respect what somebody's done to get there, how hard they've worked to do it. And everybody who's ever worn a uniform in some capacity, worked for a club or been in the media or even been a fan, has a different level of expertise when it comes to this game. They all have a different voice and opinion. It's the beauty about baseball. And man, it's also the most frustrating thing about this game is that everybody's got a voice. Everybody's got a voice. Now, bring this back to the GM. The Astros and no club goes out and spends this much money unless they don't have anything in the system to support it. That's how they do it. They don't have anything in the system to support it. Now, James Click, I personally liked I liked him as a person. I still do. And I'm not going to, he won a World Series here, and he did a really good job stepping into a very unenviable situation back in 2020 with the pandemic and the sign stealing scandal. He did a good job. Right, he just did. And he augmented that bullpen and he helped that way. And that was his contribution. He leaves here with a ring and several $1 million in his pocket that they didn't have when he got here. Good for him. Okay. But I talked about this a couple times. He was pretty myopic in who he hired. He hired guys that looked just like him. He hired guys that had the same voice. And maybe that's what he was comfortable with. Certainly the person I got to know away from that group, wasn't that guy. He was affable, and he was straightforward, and he was direct. And I had no problem with James Click, none. Okay, personally. But you have to have some diversity. Now, if you look at the group that's making decisions right now with Jim Crane, let's start with Jim Crane at the head of that table, and let's talk about Enos Cabell, and let's talk about Jeff Bagwell, who's obviously front and center right now, and Craig Biggio, and Reggie Jackson, and Dusty Baker. And it's well known that that's his circle. In case anybody's paying attention, you got 4 Hall of Famers in there, 3 currently in there and 1 that's going to go, right? And Jose Cruz Sr. has been seen quite around the ballpark quite a bit. I don't know if he's in these conversations or not. He's pretty good too, right? So if you've got some guys in that mix who have seen baseball, who have years and years and years, centuries of experience, no matter what their activity is, that's who Jim Crane is listening to. And so when you go look at these things like this, they've seen the system and they've seen the drafts and they understand what's out there. And I gotta say this, I don't care if Chris Gross and some of these guys, there's a scout in the Southeast who I'm going to remain nameless. I just told you the region who, when I saw him when they won the World Series, say congratulations, had just the bitterest look on his face. And I can tell you this right now, and I say this with love, they've done a terrible job in the draft. Let me say it again, because I don't think they heard me in the back. They've done a terrible job in the draft, and they've done that for years now. Now you've got some guys that have panned out. You've got Jeremy Pena, who's a 3rd-round pick, we even said underwhelming. You know what he hit? He's a regular. He's an 80 defender, might be a 90 defender. But if you had it on your card, he was going to hit 22 home run, whatever he had, 21 home runs, World Series MVP, and ALCS MVP before the playoffs. I want to see it. I want to see all that because I don't believe you, okay? Nobody in baseball that I talked to said he would do that. Everybody said he would pick it up and execute, all right? Pat him on the back. Great job. He's a regular. Some guys were light. Some guys were heavy. Bottom line, who cares? He's in the big leagues, and the scouting staff deserves a pat on the back for that. Hunter Brown is going to be somebody that's got a really good arm where he's going to fit. Great job, okay? But then you've got some questions. You've got, Forrest Whitley, who's a question. You've got Corey Lee, who is without question an issue as far as what his ultimate role is going to be. And you've got some holes in player development, and there's some other guys that walk around, I don't want to say smug, but I'm going to say they walk around acting like because the big league team is winning that they've done something. It doesn't end just because the day the season's over is the day that the next season begins. It doesn't stop right then, man. This is show business. It's not show friends, and it's not a frat mentality, man. Let's go. Let's get out there. Let's compete. Let's find players. Let's evaluate. Let's use our process, and let's make good decisions. And they don't have, just because they've made some bad decisions and make them bad people, it's irrelevant. They haven't made some good decisions. And this group is tasked with, the next GM who comes in here is going to be tasked with not so much this big league roster, which has got at least a 3 to 5 year window, 3 years minimum, 5 year max. Okay. This next general manager is going to be tasked with keeping a good team, a championship team in that realm. He's going to be tasked with having an understanding of analytics. He's going to be tasked with having a network of people. He's going to be tasked with finding personnel to go in there and take all voices, Dusty, Bagwell, Crane, the scouts, the pro scouting, the group of people, all voices together, and put people in place to make the best decisions for the organization. And that means rebuilding scouting and player development. I don't care if that hurts some feelings, but that's what it means. You got to have a little bit of swagger about you, not arrogance, a little bit of swagger and confidence, and know that you can get in and get the job done. You got to be able to identify things with feel and vision and understand how to play the game, and then go look at the numbers and get excited because the numbers are like, man, that matches up. That's cool. That's what I want to see. You should be concerned if the numbers in the eye test don't match up. Okay. And that's what scouting and development hasn't done. They've been all one way for too long. And you've seen it now bear out. Now, 5 years ago, when we started talking about this, yep, I just got up on my soapbox. You see that? Let me do it again. Got up on my soapbox. Okay. 5 years ago, when we started talking about this, the hate mail that came in was ridiculous. Now, I'm not going to say I'm right, but what I am going to say is that when it comes down to what is there now, you got an owner who is determined to win. He's turning around spending $20 million a year on a first baseman, and I believe it was $15 million a year on a seventh inning guy. Okay? That's a lot of money. He's doing it because he wants to win. He's doing it because he cares about the city of Houston, because he wants rings. He wants these things. Okay? What's that line? I need big rings. I got a really big team. Need some really big rings. That's where he's looking at it. That's what these guys are doing. But you got to have some passion for what you're doing. You can't just sit back and go, well, it's woe, but who cares? You got to go find players. You got to develop them. You got to get them to the big leagues or make them tradable assets, which hasn't been done here in quite some time. Off the soapbox and now.
Montero's contract was not quite $15 or $15 million a year. Montero's contract was 13, I think.
Okay. Tomato. I mean, it's $2 million difference, but yeah, I hear you.
No. An average of 11.5.
11.5.
34.5. Still a lot of money. I think many people believe initially that was an overpay, but you and I had talked or texted after that, and you said it might seem like it, but I think that once the market starts moving, you'll see that that's probably in line with what other relievers are getting. And then, of course, certainly Edwin Diaz with the big deal he got. Now, I know that they're not comps. They have different roles, but a contract like Diaz's certainly sets the bar for relievers in some form or fashion. And I think you can slot guys after that.
Yeah, I would argue that the reason why that's happening, industry or not, is because, and I had some time to reflect on it because I stand by that statement. And but it's because as an industry they haven't done a good job drafting either, because you guys have been doing the same stuff, right? I mean, go look at these player development systems. I mean, and go look at how it's done. And it's going to be ironic that the Astros and Bob, by the way, appropriate that the Astros are going to be the first club to zig when everybody else is zagging. Okay, they were the first club to zig, and really be successful with it to win a World Series at the big league level. I mean, the Indians have been very, very good for a very long time. They haven't, or the Guardians rather now, they haven't won anything. The Mariners haven't won anything. The Cubs did, right? The Red Sox did. So I guess the Astros, as far as the pitch data and the next wave of analytical information, they've won. The Oakland A's, I'm still waiting for their parade. And I love David Forrest. I told you I never, so wrong one year, so I'm never going to question Billy and David again. But where are the parades at? You know what I mean? We've had two here. You know what I mean? So when you turn around and you look at that, it's the analysis of what that is that they drafted based on analytics in many cases, or they haven't married the two properly within the system and at the big leagues. And the amateur stuff, those analytics don't work. Not the ones they're using. They don't work. The models are changing now. Our model here, I'll tell you this, our model here has to do with swing and misses, has to do with chase percentage, swing and misses at strikes, by the way, on both sides, pitching and hitting, has to do with first step, quickness. It has to do with athletic data. It has to do with hard contacts and that exit velocity is factored into that as far as measuring a hard contact versus just what we rate with our eyes. Has to do with extra base hits, has to do with batting average on balls in play. That's, not all of that matters in the same weight, but all that stuff comes together when you're looking at metrics as far as what a amateur player can do for performance data. Now, nowhere in there did I say, raw anything. I'm talking about cumulative. I'm talking about averages. I'm talking about playables, things like that. And the industry is starting to swing towards that in the amateur model. They don't have enough to be able to put it together. I might know a guy that has a circuit you can do that with, but they don't really have enough yet as a group to put that together. And so the analytical models they've been using have been just not accurate. Now, take that stuff to the big leagues and pro ball, fine, because you have so many more bats and so many more quality control stuff and so many more talent versus talent, which is a side note, is the reason why they tried to go to a college draft, is to eliminate expenses in the minor leagues and draft college players who think they have, it's called job security, right? We say this has to work. So I'm going to go draft Jason Bristol and Jeremy Booth. Jason Bristol's playing at LSU, Jeremy Booth's playing at Texas A&M, and then I can understand how that's going to work. Doesn't mean you've got the best player. It just means that's what you're trying to do, right? So that stuff doesn't work in the amateur draft, and good for the Astros for recognizing it.
Of course, the big news from Jeff Bagwell is that after the Jose Abreu news conference, Jeff Bagwell was talking with reporters and basically acknowledged that he felt the Astros had gone too heavy on analytics under James Click. And it's interesting because James Click did some things to kind of swing the pendulum back in a way, because Jeff Luhnow and crew had really gone way over the edge. Exhibit number one, firing all those scouts. But James Click goes ahead, brings more scouts back into the organization. I think this draft, on the surface, at least their first round pick, was a baseball guy, right? Yeah, he had stats, but he was a baseball guy. And it seemed like this was the first draft, Jeremy, where you turned to me and said, okay, I see what they're doing here. I see what they're doing.
Well,
side of that, we've also talked, and you've brought up the lack of diversity, the people that James Click had brought in, and you look at some of the people who've left the organization or were forced out of the organization. And I think that those are the people that perhaps went way too far for Jeff Bagwell's liking, and others who have Jim Crane's ear.
I think this was the first draft they've had in a while that it was any good. I'm just going to say it directly. I think Drew Gilbert's a good pick. He's made for this city. Honestly, he's fine. Their second round pick was a pretty good player. The first two guys, but that's one out of how many, right? And that's still only not. It's not just the top of the draft. There's so much depth to be had. You're in a situation now where if you're in the top 20 rounds, you only have 20 rounds, right? You should be drafting starters, left-handed pitching, basically, because you can go get a lot of this stuff internationally too, or sign these free agent right-handers after the draft that have one pitch or 1.5 pitch, that have good arms, that are relievers anyway. You can do that later because that's how this works. You used to take those guys in 19th round, 22nd round. Now you just sign them. You just sign them after that. You don't have to worry about it, right? They're everywhere. They're everywhere. All the fifth starters are everywhere. And I know it sounds funny to fans listening to that, but if you look at what the system is, what these guys can be, there's a bucket of guys that are everywhere, okay? And those right-handed guys that throw hard, they're everywhere. Now, left-handers that can pitch, not so much. Left-handers that can pitch with velocity in secondary, not so much. Starting pitching, absolutely not. True starters, absolutely not. Catching, you can get that in Venezuela. You can get that in the Dominican. You can get college catching here. High school catching is good, but only if it's can't miss college catching or high school catching. And it needs to be some with athleticism and bat-to-ball skills and a hit tool, not just somebody behind the plate. When it comes to middle of the diamond defenders, you can get those in the U.S., you can get those in Latin America, you can get those in Asia.